things before we start. I wanted to give you an idea of the agenda and what we're going to be going through. So we will talk about the challenge, some highlights of the challenge and examples through that part of the discussion. But we do assume that you've already read the challenge, hopefully a couple of times, so you have familiarity there. Our goal isn't to walk you through the entire challenge here tonight. Then we'll move into a section around kind of admin, administrative type things where we talk about paperwork, expense reports, so you have an understanding of those areas. And then finally, we'll move on to talk about appraisers and clarifications. So if there's a certain thing you're looking for us to cover tonight, you can send us a note through the chat window. And that is how we're going to be talking with you guys. So if you look in your panel on the right, there is a section that says type a message here. So if you have questions as we go, feel free to use that. And I will do my best to mediate. We usually have another person that watches the question box, but we'll be able to pause and answer questions you might have or save them for later if it relates to a different section of the presentation. Okay, so really our goal here tonight is to be sure as team managers you are prepared and informed for the best season you can have this year. We want to make sure that you know what to expect when it comes to tournament time, where to go for help, and really having a clear understanding of the challenge. So our goal is to just get all of you ready. So I just want to take a moment and make sure, Jessica, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I can hear you. But
Okay.
the one thing it doesn't seem like I can send a message on chat to anyone but you.
So
if I tried to answer a question.
Oh well, you and I should be able to talk. So hopefully, can we
Okay.
have someone who's out there just get in the chat window and send a question to the where it says entire audience, just to make sure Jessica and I can see it. Let's test that out really quick. I don't see anything yet. I just want to make sure people can actually get to us. I'll type something in, see if they can see what I type. Can you see that, Jessica?
I do, but again, then my choices for two are to organizer only, organizer and panelist, and presenter, which are basically just you and I.
Okay.
I don't know, but
no one else is typing in that window at this point. Okay. Well, hopefully someone will do that. So again, people on the phone, if you can look at the little chat window and type a message in there, just so we know that we can communicate with you, that would be great. So we'll just give it some time and see if somebody can do that. Otherwise, we'll start going here so we can get through this. We've got, looks like about 18 or 19 people on the line. So meet the team. This is a list of all your regional challenge masters and affiliate challenge masters. Affiliate means state level. So as I said at the beginning, I'm Julia Hampton, and Jessica's here with us as well, and we represent different regions. So it's important as a team manager to know who your regional challenge master is, and we call that an RCM. So look for your area there. You've got the emails for people, and this is a good place to start if you have particular questions about DI, about the challenge, about the presentation side of the tournament. You can start with your regional challenge master, and then if they have questions or something that they can't answer, they usually ask the affiliate challenge master. You can also, feel free to come to us, to Julia, Dick, or Jessica with questions as well, and we'll do what we can to help you out. As I said, we will be talking about clarifications, which is another way to get an answer a little bit later in the deck. So starting off with, as a team manager, you really are an educator. You are someone that plays a key role, obviously, in your DI team's journey. It really is about the journey of getting to the solution, of going through the entire process that is key to DI. We want to be sure that you know that you're playing a key role in what they learn and how they learn and what the experience is for the kids. So it's a pretty exciting role to play. We think it's important for teams to define their own success. You know, for some teams, it's just about, can we even get to the point where we can go to the tournament? I mean, there are certain teams where it's a lot harder to get things going on a DI team than expected, but part of the process and the successes along the way are very important. So some teams want to make sure they get to the tournament with everything in the truck. Some teams want to go to global finals, and that's, you know, the end game. Everyone kind of has their own way of defining success, so it's important to talk to your team about that and really celebrate successes along the way. Utilizing the skill sets of your current team members is important as a team leader. There are certain things when I was a team manager that I knew certain kids were really, really good at, and others maybe not so much. But one of the things I also tried to do was have those kids that were good at certain things teach others. And that is a really good way to get your team working well together. So I've seen that work well on teams through the years. The creative process is messy, not linear. If you've had any practices at this point, you probably know this at this point. It's not, you know, here are the 5 steps to getting to the best solution and that's the end of it. There are a lot of things kids are going to try and then adjust and try again and then adjust. And that really is what DI is all about, is learning to get through processes and what do you learn and how do you grow from your successes and failures along the way. For me as a team manager years ago, when I would see the team come together in that way where you know, somebody puts an idea out there, another puts another idea, and then the team begins to brainstorm and they come up with something even better in the end, and everyone's really excited about it. To me, that's watching DI in action. So watch for those moments and really celebrate and let your kids know that that's really the key piece of DI that we want them to take away from this. So just definition of creativity, it's produced, not reproduced. So not copying something that you saw, but really making something new, bringing something new into existence that hasn't been seen before. So as we always say, you know, something unique and new and something that you know, an appraiser hasn't seen before is what gets everyone excited about DI. So moving on to the central challenge, eat, sleep, and I'd say dream the central challenge. It's so critical that as the team manager, you read it on your own and understand, and have your team read it on a regular basis and understand as well. Understand it, question it, read it again and again. It's good to have specific intervals where maybe once a month, and as you get closer to the tournament, that you read the challenge regularly to be sure that you're meeting the criteria. The team can't fully capture everything the first time they read it. I mean, you need to, as you start to build your solution, go back and make sure that you're hitting the right components and you're following the rules. There are a lot of times I've played an appraiser role as well, where you watch a team do a presentation and you think, you know, did they read that part of the challenge, or and it could have been that they didn't understand something. So part of coming to this training is for us to help you understand where to get help, where, you know, where do I go, how do I understand, how can I be sure that my team is set up for success. So highlighting and making notes on the challenge is important, and then making sure you're paying attention to the definitions of the challenge and then the reward points, which we'll be talking about this a little bit more, and we'll show you the page we're talking about. But looking at that reward point page is a really good way for a team to say, are we meeting this? Are we meeting this? Or what are we going to do for that one? It's a good way to really walk through the challenge and think about how you're going to solve for it. That's one of the things that was really a key place for my team as they went through the challenge each year. And again, you can't read it too many times. So even assigning one kid who looks at it on a regular basis and plays that role for your team can be helpful. Okay, understanding the basics. The team budget for this particular challenge is $150. And what that means is $150 if someone was to reproduce what you bring to the tournament, what you present at the tournament. So while teams may spend a lot more money than that as they go through the DI process, it's really thinking about it from the perspective if another team was to do exactly what you did that day during your 8 minutes, how much would that cost? The costumes, the props, the set, and anything else that you have going on up there. So think about it from that perspective as you fill out your expense report. Time limit, there are 8 minutes for the performance. So you'll be in your launch area, and as soon as the timekeeper announcer says you may begin, that's when the 8 minutes begin. So the team will take the step onto the floor, set up whatever they have to set up, and begin their presentation. Every team needs a team identification sign. It's 2 by 3 feet, which is the standard size of a poster board. Includes the team name, number, school organization. And this is not a scored element. What this has to do with is the appraisers have so much paperwork and so many teams they see in a day. Having a team identification sign out front when you do your presentation or your performance allows them to double check the numbers, especially if schools are going back to back with the same different teams. So it's really important that we have that sign on hand. And then the presentation area is 8 feet by 10 feet, and there will be an electrical outlet provided. So just keep those in mind as the team begins to build their challenge. Okay, so Jessica, I'm going to throw to you to start talking about the central challenge. And when we're done with this section, we will pause and see if you guys have particular questions you might want to ask. So go ahead, Jessica.
Alrighty, so getting into the meat of this, again, kind of as mentioned, when we go through this, we do kind of expect you to have read this and have some understanding. Feel free to ask questions, we'll get to that point, but kind of just so you know, in case we gloss over a few things. So this is kind of the challenge on an overview. We're going to go into these items a little bit more specifically, but kind of your overview, what we're looking for in plain sight. So the science and art of deception in nature, camouflage, it's really at the core. And we're trying to research it, how it occurs in the natural world. So, and this is going to be a really critical thing. There's obviously many ways to do artificial camo, but really what this is kind of focusing on in a lot of the research and the science, the part of the scientific challenge is that we really want to see, kids have seen and really done the work to see how this is done in nature. So what we're going to have they're going to have 2 separate camouflage creations, and these need to be separate. And I think at some point we'll kind of talk about double dipping a little bit, but again, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, so I might say it too many times. But our hipster, they got kind of cute with the name, the hiding in plain sight character. This is it needs to represent a real life organism, and the hipster's use of camouflage is going to have to cause a plot twist in the story that is presented. So that's one. The second one is camo, which is kind of a confusing name if I use the word camo. I'll try to say camouflage, but the camo is our camouflaged object, and this is basically applying camouflage methods to a set piece or prop, and that's kind of the critical thing there. The set piece or prop, making its true identity kind of difficult to detect or recognize. So kind of the examples that we've been using for training purposes is a hipster is an example of a hipster or a real life organism that uses camouflage in nature could be a chameleon. And the one that's noted in the challenge itself for the camouflaged object, is a hidden safe. So a safe that might be hidden behind a picture on a wall, for example. So kind of you can see the differences, real life, an organism versus a set piece or a prop. So kind of moving on. Did it move? There we go. All right, so we're going to go through, before we go into each of those, we're not going to go through each of these too much, but there is some critical vocabulary that we kind of that you need to be aware of. And it's all defined within the challenge itself, but this is something that might be kind of good to take note of what these items are. So portray, kind of the key here is directly or indirectly. And then we also define prop and set piece. As we just noted, the camo has to be a prop or a set piece, so this is what that can be. So we won't go through and read those, but these are good things that as you're going through to kind of note that we do have special DI definitions for some of these objects. So we have another couple pages of these, I believe. So the camouflage methods, you'll see this a lot throughout the challenge, and so one of the keys here is, may include, but is not limited to, the items that they note there. Again, if you have any specific, again, Julie said we'll get to clarifications, but if for some reason you find you do research, or not you, your team does research and they find, other forms of camouflage, obviously, they're not limited. If you're feeling on the fence, is it going to count? Send in a clarification, but this is kind of what they're looking for when they define camouflage methods, and you'll see that a lot throughout the challenge. What is our next one? On technical methods, if you've been around DI, you've probably seen this 100 times. Its use, how we really define technical methods, and this isn't a huge part of this challenge, but there are points and there are specific categories that do mention this, so just kind of be aware of what these things actually mean, because sometimes, technical methods can be very vague, and so we really, DI tries to not, there's still a lot listed there, but we do try to kind of narrow in on what we as an organization consider these things to be. And then whatever's next. Alright, so kind of getting into our challenge elements. The hipster, so our hidden in plain sight character. It needs to be able to hide in plain sight. See what they did there with the challenge name. And it has to be able to physically represent an individual member of an actual known form of Earth-based life. So this is critical, and it's one of the things that you're going to have to do for your paperwork, is you're going to have to list out the genus and species and everything. So it has to be real, can't be made up. You're going to have to give it scientific name and everything. So kind of one of the big things there. And you're going to have to take the properties of the real-life organism that make it difficult to detect or recognize. So the camouflage. And again, these are the real-life, what that organism uses in real life to hide itself. Not like, oh, I'm going to use this animal and we're going to create a camouflage method for it. No, it has to be what it actually uses in real life, and so it's kind of a big thing, and really, again, it's a scientific challenge, and so really the points are in the visual display of we'll get into the points, but you'll want to see, we want to see what the research that has been done for the camouflage methods, and while it's great and it'd be awesome to have a challenge where maybe you created your own camouflage, that's not the challenge this year. So that's kind of some of our first basic points on the hipster. I think we have another slide on the hipster. So it must not represent a human at any point in the presentation. This is specifically the hipster. So your hipster cannot change from a human to your organism, for example. Also, one of the things that we'll kind of go through, or has been noted now in the clarifications, is the definition of human. And so basically, anything that has a scientific name that begins with homo is going to be considered a human. So even if it is an extinct species, kind of Neanderthal, that kind of thing, that's still being considered a human for this challenge. At least one team member must portray the hipster. So this is kind of where that vocab comes into play. Portray can be directly or indirectly. So just kind of, this is where that vocab, it kind of becomes kind of critical here. So it has to be a character in the story. So we can't just have an organism that's sitting on the side. You'll see DI is all about integration, top to bottom. We want to see it in every aspect. Really, you'll see pretty much everything that's scored has some sort of integration, and is one of those things that I'll probably say way too many times in the next few minutes. But so it has to be a character in the story. It cannot be a proper set piece. So kind of that whole, a living organism really isn't going to be a set piece, right? So, and those are also defined. And only one character can be listed on your tournament data form as the hipster. So we're not going to limit you and say that, maybe your entire team wants to be all different organisms that have camouflage and that hide and use natural camouflage to, make themselves harder to detect. However, we're only going to be able to score one, so one character. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, when you're going along. And if you do have multiple characters that are using, that could be a hipster, maybe just keep in mind when you're putting it on your form, which one might get you the most points, and not that, because at the end of the day, while this is, this is a competition and points advance you. We had kind of noted that success is how you define it, but with the points that is. So to get into the points, integration, there's my favorite word. Integration and evidence of the research visible in the appearance of the hipster. So kind of as I noted, this is where that scientific piece comes in. That's going to be one of your set of points. So the creative methods that are used to create this visible appearance, the stagecraft materials, there's our fun technical methods that's defined. How the visual effectiveness, how well were your camouflage methods, another vocab word, how well were they used? One of the things, they kind of define in the challenge that, taking someone's camouflage jacket out of a, from right off the store rack or out of a closet that someone uses for hunting is not going to earn the same points as if, a team develops and designs the camouflage. And it's also not going to earn points, won't earn as many points of just hiding behind a box. That's not necessarily, and for your organism, maybe hiding is a type of camouflage, but you kind of have to look and, realize that those might not, the creative methods and the visual effectiveness, might not be quite as high on that as something a little bit more original. Quality, workmanship, effort, it all kind of goes together on what we're looking for in terms of the hipster points. So really, what they focus on is the camouflage of that hipster. And then the other pieces of it are kind of the points or other places. So to move on to our camouflaged object, this is going to be our proper set piece that uses one or more camouflage methods. It can be the same or it can be different than the hipster. That's up to your team to, make the true identity difficult to detect. Able to be seen from a distance, it says 25 feet, I believe, in the challenge, trying to have a keep it 25 feet, but it also can't be just something tiny. It needs very visible. I think, use your own, but, we're, again, maybe Julie, imagine any of us are actually going to measure out anything. And it cannot be a team member because your team members are not, well, I guess they could be a prop, but really what we're looking for is a little bit more of an inanimate object type thing for a proper
And
set piece.
Jessica, I'm not sure if you're moving, but you're sometimes going in and out a little bit. I'm not sure, but just FYI.
Oh, probably. You know me. I talk with my hands. I'm sure I'm moving.
Keep your hands down.
I know. I'll sit on them.
All right.
All right. Anything that wasn't clear, though? Should I go over?
No. I think it was clear. It was about it needs to be seen from 25 feet, right? Because I think it was when you said 25, it got a little.
Yeah. So kind of looking at our camo points, it's very similar to what we just saw on the hipster. You have creative, they're practically the same, just in a different order. You have your creative methods, your visual effectiveness, your integration, and, the quality and workmanship. Here integration is a little bit more separated out, but and as I said, in DI, we want things to have meaning. We, if you're going to create, your set piece should be more than just something that's there, never referenced, that just maybe is part of the background, whatever it is. We don't want to just, it needs to be somehow part of the story. So kind of, again, I'm really a big advocate of integration, but as you'll see, these points are pretty much the same as the hipster. So shouldn't be too many issues there. Now getting into the story, because our fun, it's a performance, right? So basically, in this team-created story, we're going to have a plot twist, and this plot twist needs to be caused by the hipster's use of its natural camouflage methods. And what they say here is in the challenge is that it should have a type of theatrical impact. Now, that's it's a very tough thing to always sometimes define, but I think you understand, if you watched a show, it's kind of, what is that wow moment, or that like ooh ah, what's the pop, the bang, the ham it up is kind of what I've told people, is that for a theatrical impact, it should have that ham to it essentially. But again, kind of the big thing though there is that it needs to be caused by the natural camouflage of the hipster. You're going to be getting points on the creativity of the story, and one of the things, this is another one of our this is common across all DI, whether you're an instant challenge, central challenge, whether it's scientific, fine arts, anything. A story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's one of those things to note that if your 8-minute ends and the story has not concluded in A, it's missing an end. And we can't give it those full points for having all 3 aspects. So really, when you're working with your team, this is something that they really have to notice to define these things. And it's a great thing to have for no matter what challenge you do. If you end up with In Plain Sight or another challenge, any performance, this is going to be a key thing in DI, and something that we really look for and are really kind of sticklers on. We try to, our motto is, if it doesn't say you can't, then you can. Well, some of these things we do have to define, and a story is one of those, beginning, middle, and end.
Yep, and I wanted to add to that. I think one of the good tests is to have someone, as you get closer to tournament time, someone who, Aunt Susie, Uncle Bob, whoever, come just watch the kids. And obviously they cannot tell them what to do or what to change, right? It's up to the kids. But if they just don't understand the beginning, middle, and end, and I've seen this a lot with elementary teams where they don't think in that way. And as a team manager, I mean, some of them do, but I think as a team manager, it's helpful for you to, keep that in mind, and it is in the paperwork and the challenge that, what's the beginning, then what happens, and then how does it end, so that kids are thinking in that way. But I found having kind of an outsider come watch and just say, I have no idea what was going on over there, halfway through, and then the kids just need to figure out how to adjust things so that it would make sense to an appraiser. So kind of having that outside view is always helpful. Okay, go ahead, Jessica.
Alrighty, and then the next part, and this is another thing that's kind of a commonism across DI, are our team choice elements. And I apologize if I happen to say side trips. That's what they were called when I did this. This is really to show off the team's interests, skills, and talents. So if you have, kids that just, are musical, are artists, are dancers, have any special talent that, you can somehow work into a performance, as kind of one of our first slides said, utilize the skills. And this is one of those places where you get to kind of be very, we hope that you're creative everywhere, but this is a place where it's a little bit more unstructured in terms of what you can do. We don't have, it doesn't have the camo, the hipster kind of regulations to it. And really, as we said, there's some examples, costumes, actions. It's really the sky's the limit kind of thing. But this is really just a great opportunity to really showcase, some of the special things that your team has. And we know that every team has talent and awesome things that aren't always able to be, shown through the other objects or the other aspects of the challenge, and this is a great way. And you're going to have two, and one of the things is that you can't double dip. So for an example here, so one of our examples is a costume. So you could not say that the costume, or if, let's say your hipster is in a costume, for not saying that, anyway, your hipster has a costume, you couldn't then say that that costume was your team choice element. They would have to be separate. So basically anything that you're already getting points for in the hipster, the camo, and the story, we can't give you points for again. So it needs to be totally kind of separate in its own little silo. And unfortunately, we see a lot of teams come to the tournament day of, and they have their team choice element, but we're already giving them points maybe for the hipster that, and so unfortunately we have to give them one or the other. We can't give both, and we try to catch that in prep and try to fix that, but really your best chance, the most way to really optimize your points is to have all that kind of figured out ahead of time.
Right. I want to add one thing on these as well, just related to the quality, workmanship, and effort. Is it's usually very obvious to appraisers if you've taken time to work on your team choice element or not. And most of you probably know what that means, but a lot of times we'll have one TCE that you can tell was worked on and they spent time, and you can really tell there's that quality and they spent time working on this, versus the week of the tournament saying, let's just put this together and call it a TCE, and let's sing that song that we see on the internet all the time, or do that dance we see on TV all the time. Just help kids understand that this is a place where you can get some points and really, as Jessica said, showcase something special that you can do. So I would encourage, don't leave this to be the very last thing the team does, because it is a place where you can get some really good points.
Yeah, and we'll see, I think, in the next couple slides, kind of the distribution, but this is like 15% of our total points, and can really be critical.
Right.
One of the things, and then, again, not only the quality and workmanship, but integration, my favorite topic. So many times it can be tough sometimes to find a talent that, can be aligned with your skip, but, if you have a gymnast who's doing cartwheels and back handsprings off to the side of the stage that has absolutely nothing to do with the presentation, that's great. We're glad that that person is talented, but if it's not a part of the, we have to see where it fits in, and it has to be integrated in some way. Because I think more than anything, these team choice elements can many times become we say that they have to be silos in terms of you can't double dip on, but then they become too siloed and they're completely separate from everything else going on. So really, again, it's a great way to earn points, but you do have to put in the time and kind of really work it in to really utilize and maximize what you can get out of these.
Yep. Okay.
And then so here's our points. I know that right now we're focusing on the central challenge, and we've mentioned our team choice elements. That's 75%. One of the things that we skipped kind of on this webinar is kind of instant challenge. This is, again, something to not overlook at all, and we're not going to tell you how to do an instant challenge, and that's not the purpose of this. But 25%, it can really make or break a team. I have appraised many times and have gone to an award ceremony and seen the team that won and been totally shocked because it wouldn't have been my guess at all based on what we had seen in the central challenge. But some teams bomb instant, some teams kill it. So again, we're not going to go too much into it, but really it's something that just when you're going through these things as a team manager, take the time every few practices or whatever to kind of deal with instant challenge, because it really, when it comes down into the points, it's so critical. I just can't even tell you. So really, and I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Julia, on Instant Challenge, but I think it's just something that I would just so highly recommend not overlooking. I think it's sometimes it's really easy to think, oh, Central Challenge, that's where, that's where we can wing Instant Challenge. And some teams that are experienced, they can. And they've done it for years and years and years, and they can, but not every team can. Especially those first year, it's a beast of its own. It's definitely a different type of thing, and if you're not used to seeing it, and that's you haven't really done them, it can, in the end, it can really it can, again, make or break you. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think what you end up seeing at a tournament is, there's the top, 25% of teams, and it's Instant Challenge that makes a difference on where they're slated in the end. And when I was a team manager for 7 years, we did Instant Challenge every time we met. And it was either the first thing we did or the last thing. And I just had gallon-sized bags with the stuff stuffed in it and the instructions, and that's just what we did. And my team did really well in those, and that made a difference for us through the years. So I'd encourage making that a part of what you do every week or however often you meet. All right, let's keep moving so we get through.
yep. And these are we kind of went through the points. You'll see for the most part this is really evenly distributed. The camo, the hipster are both 35, and your story is going to be 30. So this is of your 60%. So really, they're all pretty even. Sometimes we have really, sometimes they're not very evenly distributed. So, but here we're pretty good. I don't think we need to spend too much time.
No, yeah, it's different than other years. So I agree with you. It's even. You got to do it all.
Yep. This is laying out in terms of actual, if you want to see it by the numbers kind of thing. The A, B, C, D, those are pretty much everything that we noted within the points that we already went over. Again, as you'll see, based on the percentages and the points, they line up. They are distributed pretty evenly. The one thing that it was kind of noted in the read the challenge type thing, or in the read the challenge slides, over in that detail column on the far right, so the integration and evidence of the camouflage research, if you want to see what part of the challenge that actually refers back to, you can go to A2G. So sometimes it's kind of nice to, make sure that you're aligning those when you're kind of going through the points. But otherwise, should be pretty clear on these. Right. And there is no, this is one of, probably, it's been a while since Scientific has had did it happen or not? We have no 0, 10s, right. No objective scoring. Everything here is going to be very subjective. So
I think it's important to look at this page regularly. We say read the challenge, but I think this is one of the pages that really the team should look at and say, what are we doing for this? What are we doing for that? Are we meeting this? I mean, get to know this page, because this is what you're going to see when you see your scores come back at tournament time. Okay, so I want to take a second here, since I'm kind of running the webinar too, and see, it looks like people are not able to submit questions. So I guess what I'm going to ask Jessica, I guess all we can do at this point is, have them send us an email and maybe we'll reply back. So it's almost as if you're just asking us a question. I don't know how else we can do it through the webinar. I'm not sure why we're not able to see what you asked. But can somebody try? Do you have the raise your hand option on your screens? People who are listening, can you try to hit that and see if we can even see the effect of that? I think we may just not have a way to communicate with you other than that.
Is the question thing, the question option open?
Yep, okay. Yeah, let me see the questions. Oh, somebody just wrote hello. Hang on, can I write in there? But can I write back test? Okay, so yes, but how can I write back? Yes, we can see, I can see those, but I can't write back to you.
Can we answer them on the bridge?
Oh, hi, I can hear, but it comes choppy. That's not good. I'm not sure. I'm sorry, guys. Usually, like I said, we have Kate, who is the coordinator of everything, go to webinar, and I just don't really even know how to trouble. I also have raised my hand, which I can't see. Wait, click to see what hands are raised. Oh, look! I see hands raised, but I can't talk to you. All right, anyway, we want to get through the webinar, so look at, I see all the little questions too. See, I can't, but we can't talk to each other. Why? Oh,
Are
okay.
there any questions?
Yeah. Okay, wait, now I have a box where I can type. Okay, somebody says the sound is not consistent. Can you please stay near the mic? Okay, so is it more clear now for the person who wrote that? Because I won't move.
I haven't moved either.
Okay, no moving. And then if you want, so it looks like the questions, if you have questions, we did this test and a lot of you wrote in. If you have questions, let's put them there. And we'll keep going with the webinar and then we'll come back to the question box afterwards, okay? So thank you for doing that with us. Let me just put this away. Okay, so let's finish this piece and then we'll see if we can answer some questions and I will stop moving. From a paperwork perspective, when you go to the tournament, your team has to have all the forms ready when you go to check in. So there's a tournament data form. You'll have 5 copies of that. For an elementary team, it's okay for the team manager to do the writing, but we really want the team to be saying, it's this, it's that, it's the other, not for the team manager to just, fill it in. When it comes to middle and secondary, it's expected that those teams fill in their own paperwork with their own words. It's very important to be succinct on that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Declaration of Independence is where everybody on the team signs, and we have their birth dates listed as well, so you bring a couple copies of that. One expense report is all that's needed, and then any team clarification. So if you have asked for a clarification, it's important to have it in your paperwork because that is then handed to the appraiser so they understand that the International Challenge Master said yes or no to something, okay? And it is important to bring extra copies of your paperwork. For anyone who's been through this before, it can be nerve-wracking to think you left it in the hotel, you left it in the car, it's in the other car, we don't have it. A safe way to go is if there's a parent you trust, make sure they have them and you have them just in case something gets messed up. A lot of times at tournaments and even all the way to global finals where teams show up and don't have paperwork with them. So please do your best to be diligent about that as a team manager. Oh, hang on, there we go. And the content of the paperwork, it's very important to be concise in what you write. The appraisers don't have a lot of time to read the paperwork, and they look at the specific areas they're appraising and read through to make sure that they capture, when they watch the performance, they can see what you're doing and when they're supposed to be paying that close attention. So it's really a way to focus appraisers on what they are supposed to be scoring. So keep that in mind with your teams and try to work with them to be very concise. I know there are people who want to write a novel. Sometimes we have people on our teams who are great at writing and creative in the whole deal, which is great, but this isn't the place for it. So please do your best to be sure they're direct in what they say in the paperwork. And for In Plain Sight specifically, additionally, you'll have to have 5 copies of a published image that shows the camouflage method of the real-life organism represented by the hipster. So this is something that is additional for In Plain Sight. And then also the common name, genus, and species of the organism that uses the camouflage. So just a couple extra pieces that aren't standard. So just keep that in mind as well. When it comes to the expense report, what you are reporting on, and we talked about this right in the beginning, that $150 is how much it would cost if another team was to recreate your solution that you present on tournament day. So those are the costs that you're keeping track of. When the team looks at, okay, yeah, we made 4 costumes, but only 2 of them are going to be part of it, that type of thing. That's what you will be costing out in the expense report. So, and everything needs to be noted on the expense report, and we'll go through that a little bit here at a high level. So there are exempt items like your normal clothes. Obviously, kids have to have clothes on when they're up there if they don't do costumes. And if there's something that could be found in a classroom, that's something that's an exemption as well now. So that's computers, AV equipment, floor coverings, etc. So that's a nice exception. They didn't have that years ago when my team was on it. And if you had a musical instrument, you had to estimate the cost, that type of thing. So I'm glad they finally made that change because of the way things have advanced, technology-wise and people wanting to use instruments. So that's great. Exempt items still must be noted on the sheet, so you will list them, but there's not a price. And then looking at the rules of the road, which is a document that you have access to as a team manager on the Colorado site, on the DI site, is the best place to go for any questions or details you might need to look at. Brand new items need to be listed at the value that the item is. Shipping and tax doesn't matter. And then again, if you use half of a can of paint, you can list half the amount for half the can. For used items, you can assign a fair garage sale value to those. So a lot of times, teams in DI, there really is the spirit of recycling and, grabbing this and that from wherever you can to build what you make, which is great. And that really keeps the price of the challenge down. And then there are trash items, newspaper, aluminum cans, egg cartons. There's a list of those in the rules of the road as well. So just, use that section as well. Okay. So again, just for expense report, look at the rules of the road. The form is fairly standard and easy to fill out, but just make sure the team is reflecting the final challenge, the final performance in the paperwork. Okay, next up is safety, which safety is a top priority for DI. We want the kids to be safe, we want the audience to be safe, we want the appraisers to be safe. When kids get creative and want to make, exciting, build something really exciting and cool, you have to keep safety in mind, right? So while as a team manager, you may guide kids on how to say, saw a board in half or nail this or use a drill, those types of things. You are not able to do that work, but you can teach them how to do it safely. That's very important as you go through your season and the process. There are special rules about chemicals, electrical devices, dry ice, helium, those types of things, and those are in the rules of the road. Those can change through the year, so it's important to look there for that piece if your team is going that route. I know that I had a team who used dry ice one time, and they had to make sure they had gloves and safety glasses, and and how to dispose of it when you're done, and all of that. They want to be sure that we don't ruin any of the tournament sites or cause any danger for anyone else. No props that look like weapons are allowed. This is just one of the DI rules, and also many of the schools or tournament sites that we use have no tolerance policies for, children using something that looks like a gun or could be portrayed as a gun, that type of thing. So if you have a team who, wants to do something like that, I would say, encourage them to think differently about that part of their presentation, because something that looks like a weapon is not allowed. All team members have to have foot and shoe covering or foot coverings. When I've seen this come up has been when kids are wearing those huge onesie pajama things, which I've seen all over the place in the last year, and they don't have enough of a sole. So it has to have some kind of a sole, not just material. So something like a ballet shoe is fine because it has that leather on the bottom, but make sure that if they do wear a onesie or something that is tights or something like that, that they have a shoe that their foot is in as well, and that's just safety, so they don't step on anything that causes a problem. And then every tournament site is different, has its own rules. So for your particular region, if you have questions about what you can and can't use, what you can and can't bring, that type of thing, you can reach out to your regional challenge master for information. They should know more about what's being planned. Okay, on to appraisers. Appraisers are the people who do the scoring at the tournament, as most of you know, and they're all volunteers. So people that come in, love kids, want to help, want to, be part of the DI experience, which is fantastic. So they are trained to use consistent scoring methods to be sure that, they've been trained on how to understand what they're looking at. It's not like they come in the day of and just get a score sheet. So there is some training that goes on, which is great. And they do all have only certain elements to score. And I think it's important for you as a team manager to share this with kids, because I have seen where kids, it seems that they think everybody scores everything. And there is a matrix that is used. It's a DI published matrix that we use as appraisers, where I might score 2 things related to the story, 2 things related to the hipster, and 2 things related to camo. And Jessica might score 2 different things related to the story and the 2 TCEs. So every appraiser has a different set of criteria they're judging. So when the appraisers walk up and they say, can you tell me about this? And hey, who can tell me about that? They're trying to get information on the parts of the solution that they are scoring. So sometimes I see kids' faces kind of get sad, or like, why did that appraiser walk away and these other three are still talking about the set? Well, that's because you're trying to get the information you need to do the scoring that you're responsible for. So the appraiser's job is pretty fast-paced and go, go, go all day long, which you can imagine. And they don't have a lot of time to read that paperwork. So again, just emphasizing very succinct paperwork, making sure that kids understand, you know, it's usually moving fast, and especially if a site ever gets behind, they are trying to quickly do their work, get the scores down, and move on to the next team. And appraisers do want to give points. I do think there's a little bit of fear with kids for, you know, when they see the appraisers, when the appraisers walk up, they're a little bit afraid. But really, the goal for appraisers is, I want to give you as many points as I can, so help me do that, right? They'll appraise what the forms tell them to appraise. We've already beat that dead horse. And then also they will come up and interview the team after the performance, and they have just a couple of minutes to come up and say, tell me about the set, tell me about the story, how did you come up with this idea? Some of the questions they'll ask, and it's important that kids, you know, spend the time to talk about the process and what did they go through and what did they learn as they went through the DI process. So I think as a team manager, it's good to ask your kids some of those kinds of questions before they get to tournament and know who is going to be answering which pieces. I think that really helps make it go smoothly for the appraisers when we get to that point. Okay, on to resources. We've talked about most of these already, but Rules of the Road is on the DI website, and that is something you have access to as a team manager. It's a large document, important to read, but again, we've pointed to a couple of the places that you might zero in on to really spend some time reading, which is the expense report and some of the stipulations there, as well as what was the other one? I can't even remember. Expense report and I can't remember. Anyway, I'll keep going. There's also a team manager roadmap that helps lay out your season and when to do what and how often to have practices. So that's helpful if you need a roadmap for how to get there to the tournament. Clarifications, we'll be talking about those in a minute in detail. Challenge Masters, we gave you that list. And then, you know, never hesitate to ask. I mean, we are here to answer questions for you. So don't feel alone. Don't feel like any question is stupid to ask. Just ask, because we you know, are trained on a regular basis. We spend time talking with other you know, challenge masters, and we may have an answer for you for any kind of question you might have. And we're pretty experienced as well when it comes to DI. So please feel free to ask. Okay, finally, clarifications, and this is our last section. We're getting there, we're almost done. So clarifications are if you ever have a question to ask the international challenge masters. So while we are affiliate challenge masters, Jessica and I were at the state level, there are what are called international challenge masters who have the final say. So they publish clarifications on a regular basis as needed to provide additional details or definitions around the challenge. And we'll show you what has been published in a couple slides here. So it's really important that you check the iDoDI website regularly for updates. And I can't, this is another one of those things I can't emphasize enough. I had some people that got past their region into state and were still doing something not correctly last year, and there was a clarification about it, and the kids had to change something right there on the fly, which they did a good job, but it caused some tears, and that stuff is really hard. So please be an informed team manager and look out there and see if something comes up that makes you have to change something in your solution. So the two published clarifications that are out there as of yesterday are these two. So, and just how you would read this, as you can see the date, it was published on 11/12/2015. The second was on 12/7. So the first one, what we're really trying to get at here is the use of any camouflage products that are commercially produced, such as military hunting patterns, will earn fewer points in these particular areas. So you can look back at that score sheet that we showed you and get an understanding of where the scores may be lower. Okay, so that's just trying to help you understand that piece. And then the hipster visual representation, The hipster must not visually represent a human at any time during the presentation. The purpose of this challenge, a human is defined as any life form with the genus Homo, which is what Jessica talked about earlier. So just making sure that your team is aware of these in case it causes them to have to change something. The next page talks about this. There are also team clarifications. So we've been alluding to this all through this presentation. So if, as a team, you can submit up to 10 clarifications, and those go directly to the International Challenge Masters, and they will answer you within 24 to 48 hours. They, will answer any question. They will point to the place in the challenge to help you understand, where they think they answered that question, or if you ask something that isn't specifically laid out, they will answer it for you. And the way this works is, as teams submit clarifications, if the same question has been asked many times, that's usually when the International Challenge Masters will publish a clarification that everyone can see. So you don't get to see what other teams are asking, but those International Challenge Masters are watching to see, gosh, we've had 4 people ask the same question. We better publish something because we weren't clear enough when the challenge was written. So the key date there is February 15th. You can't submit one later than that. And Jessica and I both talked about this before we got on here. We just encourage people to use this as a resource. It is not something against you. It is not looked at as a bad thing to ask a question. Please use this if there's anything your team is confused about. Okay. And here's what it looks like on the iDoDI site. So you go to the teams and clarifications, and then you'll be able to choose the particular challenge that you want to ask the clarification for, and you submit it that way. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Oh my gosh, we're right at time too, aren't we? Just about 3 minutes. So just to say it again, integration is so key to every aspect of the challenge, right? Jessica's favorite word. I can't agree with her more. It's really important that everything comes together, is connected. There's that connectivity so it flows, like a little movie or a story that makes sense to people. So be sure that the team doesn't have things that are off to the side that really are not part of the story or the presentation. Double dipping, I think Jessica did a really good job of explaining that piece. And do what you're supposed to do in the time allotted and the points will come. There are many times as appraisers, Jessica and I both played this role where you wonder if the team even read the challenge or read a certain part of it when you see what they've done. So keep an eye on that score sheet and how things are going to be scored, what the appraisers are looking for, and you'll do a great job. And if it doesn't say you can't, you can. That's DI's motto. So really encourage kids to be creative and show the appraisers something they wouldn't have thought of, or something clever, or something they've never seen before, and that's what helps you move along. And then it's all about the kids, and I also would add having some fun. So I know being a team manager isn't always fun day in and day out. I did it for a long time, and I know it can be frustrating, but you guys are really playing a key role in building these kids, getting them to the next step in their lives and real life skills that school may not be teaching. So thank you for volunteering and helping out in the way that you are. So now I'm going to go look at the question page, and you can look at these quotes a little bit if you want. And Jessica, do you have anything to add or cover it?
No, I think we're good.
No, I don't see any. If anyone has a question, feel free to put it here in the box. Ask us a quick question here, and we'll try to answer. And the only other thing I could say is, if you do have a specific question, please send an email to me or to Jessica, and I'll put my email, since this is the only way we seem to be able to communicate. It was in the beginning, but send to all. Here's my email, Julia. It says Kate up here, but that's me, the answer. Jessica, can you type your email in there too?
I don't think I don't think I can send anyone but you. But what Rob was saying is that if they click their hand to green, it might help.
Oh. Okay. Well, we can try, but anyway, I just want to, if anyone's going to drop off, I want to thank all of you for attending, and just, again, if you have questions for us, and I'm sorry we couldn't communicate, through the webinar here, please feel free to reach out and ask, and Jessica and I will get back to you as, quickly. So I hope we've been helpful in getting your DI season off to a start, or if you already started, just kind of a regrounding of things, and let us know how we can help. Okay? Thank you.